Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Rhinestone Island, and this is going to be the first of probably two, maybe three episodes that will be sort of focused around just primarily jumping into the rest of the city and trying to wrap up everything we've done so far, because we've done a lot of things. We've worked on a lot of projects here and there that kind of jumped around different parts of Rhinestone Island, but we haven't finished up everything, and there's a few things that I kind of left undone. You can see that we're starting, of course, with the airport. We've got quite a few little areas around here, especially the neighborhood, but also the different mountains surrounding the airport that were pretty much totally unfinished, and so that's why this episode, and probably the next one as well, will be pretty much entirely time-lapsed and done in this sort of format that I do occasionally. I'm personally a pretty big fan of this. I don't know, I think that when I'm doing these time-lapse episodes, I have a little more freedom to just sort of play around with different ideas, and I don't know, I'm not doing everything live, so a lot of times I'll try things, and if they don't work out, I'll just cut them out, and it's not a big deal. So I wanted to do that for these last areas here, because there's quite a few areas around the airport especially that I thought it'd be just kind of fun to make little interesting hidden things that you could walk to via these trails, or maybe even just like interesting areas to go camping or whatever. So that's why I decided to structure it like this, and I think it works pretty well. So this first part actually was something that I'm doing again that's sort of along what I was talking about earlier when I said that I was trying to make every hiking trail that I put on this island have something interesting somewhere along the trail, so that it's, you know, there's something cool to go and hike to. And this area here I thought was kind of necessary to make all these trails on the other side of the airport more interesting. So I wanted to play around with that surface painter tool and make some sort of broken up dirt here and there, and I wanted to use that old lighthouse asset, and I also want to use a water tower. It's going to come up in a minute here. I'm going to put a water tower for this little sort of, I guess it's like a beach neighborhood, but it's just like a small dirt road neighborhood sort of off in the distance away from everything else, with its own little private beach and stuff, which I like. I think it's pretty cool. But I wanted to use a little more of that surface painter tool in this area. You're going to see as I continue the path up that little mountain that I'm working on right now. And I wanted to try and do something that I've been doing a little bit more. You might notice this in the next few episodes, and you might have noticed it in the past as well. But something cool about the surface painter tool, you can see I'm doing it now, is you can cut out parts of the path, and it still is like recognized by the game as path, so people will still walk on that path, even though you can see whenever I hover rocks over it, it does this little thing where it's going to delete it if I place the rock down. So there is in fact a path there, but you can place things over it, you can put foliage over top of it, you can kind of break it up and make little splotches of dirt here and there, which to me is a lot more realistic for these little trails that kind of wind up mountains. There's lots of overgrown stuff and rocks in the way and things you got to climb over, so I think it's a pretty cool way to sort of emulate that by using that surface painter tool. So turns out this mod has been a lot more useful than I thought. It's not just for putting pavement down in areas you want pavement, but it's really good for also detailing different little trailheads and things. So that's pretty cool. But here I'm using this wild grass again, which kind of turned out to be one of my new favorite pieces of foliage. I use this quite a bit, and I almost use it so much that I think I'm going to start going back to old parts of the island at some point, probably off camera, and try to fill it in a little bit, because I know it does look a bit weird to just start using a piece of foliage out of nowhere and not make it consistent all across the board. So that's why I think I'll probably go back and do that a little bit. But here, this is where I think this trailhead in particular, or this little end of the trail, starts to really shape up. Going from just having those little splotches of dirt to using the fallen leaves, which sort of blend in with the dirt really well, and then also the cobble, I think that really makes this whole area look like a nice little kind of patchy open clearing in the forest, which is cool, and a cool place to hike to for sure. And you'll see later whenever I get better angles of that water tower up there, but it would be really cool to get a hike up there from maybe a neighborhood or something, and then have that nice view of the airport. You can very clearly see like Rhinestone City way off in the distance. You can see the airport and all the planes taking off and landing, which is kind of cool. And all in all, a pretty cool little trail over there. So I'm glad that ended up having something cool and interesting in it, and not just, you know, a boring old trail or whatever. So Anyway, here I decided to try to make a little private beach over here, just something that maybe our local residents could walk to, and I'm trying to steer clear a bit of making it too commercial, because I know that especially that beach over by Luxaway Bay and all the casinos and stuff, it starts to get a little bit, there's like lots of big walkways alongside the beach, and there's a bunch of buildings and shops and all that stuff, so I want to make this one more of like a personal sort of private beach that's further away and you have to kind of hike to. So maybe if you want a little bit more peace and quiet at your beach, you could go to this one instead. And you can see we're gonna jump all around in this episode and hop around different areas as we detail it. But I love this little road in particular and how it turned out. I wanted to make this feel like a nice rural road that sort of winds around in the country, and there's those little telephone poles and the broken down car and an old abandoned farm over here and some fallen leaves and rocks and stuff. I don't know. I think this road in particular turned out really nice, and I like the way it sort of winds just around the outside of the airport there. So as you're maybe driving out to that area, you could just see the planes coming in and landing on the airport. But I just kind of like this whole town in particular. It's kind of like quirky and weird how it's just like, it sort of feels like it's off in the middle of nowhere, but it's also just like right on the edge of this big airport. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's the kind of thing that would happen if you were in some island that's secluded and totally away from everything. You'd probably have some weird stuff going on around the airport because there's just not a lot of room to develop things. So you'd have those neighborhoods pushed right up against the edge of that airport there. But here I'm working on that trail sort of surrounding the airport, and I think this was a really good idea in the end. I wanted to try and make sort of a divide between the neighborhoods and the airport, and I think by instead of having those weird fences that were just like, there's like a big rectangle all around the airport, I like having the fences sort of go along this little path that you can walk on. It just, to me, it feels a bit more natural and organic, and also I think it's really cool to have a footpath right on the outside of an airport. I don't know, I think it's a cool little feature. It's kind of nice that you could just take a nice stroll around the outside of the airport, and all the other area around the airport's really pretty as well. We got those big rocks and nice trees and some forest and some mountains and stuff, so it's a nice path to walk on, I think. And you're going to see here at the end of this path, I'm going to go ahead and eventually make another beach, another little private beach with some little campfires, and here we go now actually on it. Some little campfires and some tents and things, and it's not so much a campsite as much as it's supposed to be just a little area where you can maybe hike to and go swimming and all that good stuff. I think I'll get to it eventually. It's going to be in this area though once I finish up with these different trees and things. But you can see that I'm tossing in occasionally here those bright green trees, I guess they're or even just the default oaks occasionally, and it's not really because I think they look awesome. It's more because I've done so much of the island with the default trees and with the bright colored bamboo trees that it feels unnatural to use the darker colored trees that are more realistic exclusively. Like if you zoom out and look at a distance, there's like this darker tree area and it just looks kind of odd. So this is something that I've been sort of thinking about a lot, and I get comments about this a lot as well, like asking why I don't do larger like schools, like elementary schools and high schools, and I did do like a large campus, a college campus, so I've done that, but I haven't really installed custom assets for that either. I don't have any custom firehouses or custom police stations or any of that stuff, and really what it boils down to is I've been working on this area for so long. I've been working on this whole map for, I don't even know how long now, maybe like 8 months or something. I'm sure that's totally wrong, but for a very long time now. And the workshop has changed. There's different new, better assets coming out, and my playstyle's changed entirely. So this is just something that happens when you work on something for so long, is things start to change, and you can't, there's so much of it that's already been done that I can't possibly go back and change and revamp the things that I've already made. So there's a point where you kind of have to, just for continuity's sake, just keep using some of the old things that you would usually do. So for me, that's placing these older bright colored trees just to sort of make it all look like one big project, even though I may not actually want to use them as much in the future. And that's the same thing with detailing different elementary schools and high schools. I wouldn't really want to go and put a lot of time into making cool looking high schools and elementary schools just to have half the other half of the island not have them. So it's one of those things, and that comes along in a few different ways in the future as well. But it's fine because, like I said before, I mean we're still working towards making a really cool island, and I'm still gonna occasionally do that where I'm gonna maybe build things in a way that is similar to how I did it in the past, only to make everything look like it's all one cohesive thing and it's not just like randomly more detail for certain things in the future or whatever, or different parts of the island. So that's why that happens occasionally, and it's another reason why I'm pretty excited to start new projects in the future. And that's another reason why I'm really enjoying working on Grizzly Valley, is that it's a much newer project, so I've incorporated a lot of things that I really don't do in Rhinestone that I think look really good. So that's that. That's just a little thing I wanted to talk about. But I wanted to go in here, and you can see we're just at the edge of this runway by the cargo area, and I wanted to make sure we had, I don't know, something interesting back here, because I didn't want to put any trees down, or too many trees anyway, because it's right next to the runway. But I did want to have something interesting and not just have it be like a big grassy area. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to have some like maintenance buildings back here, maybe some trucks parked, maybe some little pieces where we would have maintenance vehicles that would go into, I don't know, maybe the runway lights and stuff. Who knows what they'd be working on, but it seems like it's pretty common to have little service access roads like on the outside of runway strips and right along the fence at the edge of an airport. So I thought it'd be kind of cool. Plus I wanted to make sure we had something interesting to look at alongside that train there, so when we have the trains flying by, they can observe some cool looking stuff, and it's not just like big grassy flat stuff. And I'll do that more later as well, because I know this is sort of a popular request, and also something that I just wanted to make sure was looking good, is to do some cool looking like POV shots from the train. I've done it a few times in the past already, but it's a really good way to get cool looking shots, because I don't know, it's a nice smooth camera that sort of winds around the city. So I'm taking a lot of like extra attention to detail around the train in particular, just to make sure that whenever we're getting those shots in the future, it looks nice. So you'll see that more later on in this episode, but that's why I'm doing all the stuff that I'm doing. That, and I also just wanted to make sure that this side of the runway had something interesting going on. So this is like the very back end, so I thought this would be where we'd have maybe some stuff parked and some service vehicles. There's a bobcat down there and a couple piles of garbage and maybe some old lumber or something. I don't know what would be down there really, but I just thought something like that would look nice. And we're just about getting done with this area. You can see I occasionally use this sand to make the grass texture look a little bit better. I think it's a nice little touch for this little corner over here, but I just wanted to make it all look like it was one cohesive piece. And this is the part that I'm finally jumping in now, that I'd sort of been dreading for a while. Not really, I don't know if dreading is the right word, but I just knew it'd be a lot of work to fill out these mountains over here. And so you may have noticed I totally skipped over them on the way to making this airport, and I sort of avoided them and ended up going and making that little town instead. But here we are finally doing this, and I'm really happy with the way it turns out. I just wanted to make sure that we could finally get this whole part of the island sort of connected. This was like the one piece that was disconnecting the airport side from the rest of the island. So once we get this done, it's much better. But what comes along with this, of course, is we had all those trails just like winding around this mountain. So you're seeing here another little campfire area, and I imagine this would actually be a campsite. And I didn't have, at the time of recording this, any of those like actual camping tents. I just have one of those bigger tents for like an event or something, which I think still fits okay. But I do go back in the future, I think off camera, but I am going to go back, and I got a whole bunch of really awesome camping assets now. I've got these little tents, and I also got a big pack of cars, just like parked cars, all the default vanilla cars, and a few other cars as well. So now we can park little pickup trucks and things by the campsites and all that good stuff as well. So that'll come later on. But I think I was just making sure here that that we had, again, some consistency in the trees. So you can see I'm going in and putting these brightly covered trees that I usually wouldn't use anymore. I just think they don't look as good as I used to think they did. There's much better trees on the workshop now, but I just sort of put them in the middle of our clusters, so whenever you look from the sides and up close, it's not really noticeable, but from afar everything still looks the same color, which is nice. So that's the way I'm handling that right now, and I don't think it's going to be much of a problem going forward. It's really still all working out well, but just again going back with the grass and trying to make all this area look a little bit overgrown, and because again it's supposed to be a very tropical and I would assume moist island, so there's going to be lots of humidity and dense forests as a result, so all the clearing should definitely have lots of sort of foliage that's like lower to the ground and a bunch of grass and all that stuff as well. So here's again another example of trying to fill out the areas next to the trains. That way there's something to look at whenever you're driving by. So I just thought this little, I don't know, like a utility stop. I would imagine maybe for the power lines that are running along that area, but also there's some logs and maybe some supplies. Maybe there's some construction going on in that area or something. But I thought that was a cool little thing that the train could run through on the way down to the airport there. And then just filling it all out. And I started using these, you can see them like all over the place, those shady tree left and shady tree right. They're the trees that are like lower to the ground, they're smaller, and they have like a much higher res texture than the other trees that I'm using. And they look almost like big bushes. So I've been just kind of scattering them all along the tree line, and it really looks great. Like I love the way they look now with the random tree rotation mod, because in the past they would all angle the same direction and look kind of bad, but now that we have random tree rotation, you can put them all over the place and they look fantastic. So nice little feature there. We're on to the trails just behind the university now. So this is the other side of the mountain. And this is like the little roundabout right whenever you get under that underpass that takes you to this part of the trailhead. So I wanted to make it look kind of nice. We wanted to have some benches down here, some places to sit down and relax and rest maybe before you go on your hike. But this is sort of inspired by my own university. It's maybe not as I mean, my university that I go to does not have a big trailhead of any sort, but this is sort of what I would like it to have, I guess. But I live right up next to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, so there are a whole bunch of trailheads that go literally from like the parking lot behind some of the buildings right at the edge of campus, and then they go straight up into the mountains. I've said this before in this series at different times. So I definitely wanted to have this whole area sort of be a nice place to go hiking if you were maybe between classes, you wanted to go get some lunch or something. So that's what that was all for. And right now I'm just shaping up this mountain first before I even go forward with that. I think it was pretty roughly drawn in the past, and I wanted to make sure that everything looked nicer. And that actually happened with a lot of these mountains. I think they weren't really done as well as I'd like them to be. So I'm going to go back sort of periodically as I go and detail them and reshape them a little bit, make them look a bit more realistic. But I think that by making these little valleys in the mountain and then filling in with trees like that, it definitely gives more of an illusion of a big tall mountain with a nice clean tree line and everything. So just a little tip if you're making mountains, and make it looks really nice to first make valleys and then fill them with trees. It's always looks a little bit better, I think. But anyway, we're back to that same trail again, putting some little picnic tables down and places to sit and eat your lunch. And we're going to get to the top here and have a nice view of the whole city, of course, and also the university and all that stuff. So I wanted to have a nice place to eat your lunch there as well. Bit of a more challenging hike, I guess, to get to the top of that part, though. Again, just reworking this mountain, it was being a little difficult. I think I mentioned this before, but there's something weird going on with the way that the default terrain terraforming tool works. I know that the mod worked really, really well even at super low values, but for some reason, once you get below 30 in radius, it just gets really funky and weird. Like, it doesn't pull the terrain evenly, and I don't really know what's going on with that, but it makes it really hard to shape the tops of mountains, I've noticed. But maybe there'll be a fix for that. Maybe I'll just get one of the mods again because they worked really well in the past. I just uninstalled all of them whenever we got the new update with the new terraforming tool. But just at the top here, I want to have a nice little clearing so we can have a good view of the campus and also the city down there. So that's what this is all about. And of course, going back with the grass again, this grass asset just looks so good, and you can see it from a distance, you know, where I'm placing it right now, and it looks already pretty good. But when you zoom in, it's got one of the most high-res foliage textures I think that even exists right now in the workshop. It looks so good, so realistic, so I'm really happy with that. And when you zoom in and get those nice close-up shots of these little trails. It's really nice to see all that realistic looking grass kind of all around the area. So big props to whoever made those. I don't know exactly who made that, but it looks super awesome. And this little windy trail over here also ended up being a pretty cool area. It's got a really nice view of the downtown area from the top. And this is where I started sort of discovering a really cool combination of assets. You can see I'm doing it right now. Using the rocks and then putting the leaves underneath and then also using that grass on top, I think just looks really good. I don't know. Something about it all really looks nice and alpine and mountainous to me. I think just going on lots of hikes and things, you see that usually it's a combination of rocks and then fallen leaves on the ground kind of around them. So it all looks nice whenever you use that asset for sure. So you'll probably see that a little bit in the future here, especially in this area over here. But that's the view you can see there. It's really nice. I'm really happy with that area in particular. It was a total accident actually when I discovered that was such a nice view, and the little turnaround happened to be perfect for that. So I decided just to kind of detail it more and make it look nice. But now we are doing a little bit of detailing on the backside of this mountainous area by the airport again, trying to just plop some foliage down and clean this area up behind the cargo facility. Now you're seeing I'm working on this river right now, and it's gonna be feeding into that little lake over there, and I'm just not sure how much I like the way this whole area looks. It used to be just a little bay whenever we had whenever we didn't have the airport there, but once we put those runways down, it sort of looks more like a little lake, but it just looks kind of unnatural at this point. I might get rid of it. I might detail it more and make it like an actual lake. I don't really know what we're gonna do yet, but anyway, we're finally on to the trailhead. Now this area has been sitting here for forever. If you remember, we worked on Opal Trailhead like 4 or 5 episodes ago, maybe more than that. But it's been sitting here for forever, and we are finally doing the detailing. And the first thing that you saw there is I went and I took all of those default parking lots that had the asphalt, and I replaced it with dirt using the surface painter tool. And I gotta say, I think that just alone, that one decision makes this whole thing look exponentially better. I mean, you would almost always see dirt parking lots near trailheads. So being able to do that with the surface painter tool was really awesome. And on top of that, using those little logs as the parking barriers was a really cool touch as well, I think, because I think a lot of trailheads use that. So it was a nice little addition there. And once I went in and detailed everything, we're going to go and start focusing on the foliage again. And this is like one of those prime examples of seeing an area that I detailed with foliage such a long time ago. And I say such a long time ago, and it's only been a few episodes, but a few episodes is like a good 2 months maybe since the last time we worked on this. So you can see all the default foliage, all the bamboo tree stuff. So I tried to get in there with some of the newer foliage to try and shape it up a little bit, because especially that big rock area up top left from what we're seeing right now, the main rocks that are supposed to be like the main sort of focal point when you get to the start of this trailhead, they were surrounded by old foliage, and I wanted to make it look nicer. So we'll get back to that more as we continue with this area. But I think the thing that really makes this whole trailhead look nice towards the end, and you're going to see this more, is I tried to have a lot of restraint in putting the foliage down at the end here. As you guys may know, I love just filling areas with something. I don't really like to have the default grass texture just sitting around with nothing on top of it. So thanks to these awesome grass assets and some different bushes and some wild grass that I've got lying around, I tried to use that more and make those clusters of trees look like nice, dense little foliage clusters. And as we get away from this trailhead, I'm going to use less and less of these big trees and more of the nice, clean little bushes and wild grass and stuff. And all in all, I think it ends up looking really nice. We get big clearings of grass, and I think that's really essential. And having a good view of a mountain peak is not having much trees in the way, obviously. So making this whole area much more open was definitely a good decision. But here I'm taking advantage of a few cool props that we found. I think especially the traffic cones just really fit well in an area like this that's supposed to be a trailhead. You wouldn't have, any sort of real barriers. You just have maybe some traffic cones put down for some temporary guidance of cars in different directions. You wouldn't really be doing anything more than that. Pretty low maintenance area all around. So I'd say the most they have is that little trailhead peak, or the front of the trailhead. We've got the restrooms, and that's like one of the only actual buildings in the whole site. And that would probably just have some sort of, I don't know, some trailheads, they have like actual restrooms with like running water, but a lot of the ones that I've noticed, they act like a porta potty, but it's more like just a gigantic hole underneath the trailhead restroom building. And it's kind of like weird and bizarre to be in there. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these things before, but if you like look down the toilet, it's just like a gigantic hole in the ground, which I imagine they would change out. I don't really know how that works, but anyway, the whole idea is there's not going to be a lot of anything that needs maintenance on a trailhead area. So that's why we got a bunch of dirt, we got a bunch of traffic cones and all that stuff. But here we're back to, again, just shaping up some mountains. I'm using this sort of finer terrain tool to make these little branches off in the mountains, which I've noticed is pretty common. So I wanted to make it look a bit more dynamic, because as it was just kind of like a big flat sides of the mountain. So this kind of cleans it up a bit before we go in there again and use some more trees and stuff. But now we're going back and finally connecting all the trails together, getting some connections to the neighborhood over there, so you could walk from the neighborhood over to the trailhead again on that side, and then shaping up some of the mountains on the other side of the trailhead as well, and getting some trees in there. But this was a very, very ambitious foliage project, lots of trees to be put down, and I'm pretty happy that it's finally done, because this was definitely something that was kind of in the back of my mind for a long time now. So it's nice to be done with all that stuff. But I'm also using some of these default rocks, you can see, especially on the cliffs, like right next to the trailhead. And I only discovered them recently after using them a lot in Grizzly Valley, where you might have noticed, if you've seen that episode, I made the mountain in Grizzly Valley out of almost entirely the default rocks, and they look really, really good when you overlap them and you use them on the slopes. They just, for some reason, they work really, really well like that, even better than the custom rocks that I have installed. So just out of nowhere, they ended up being really, really good. I thought they weren't very good at all before I used them. So anyway, we're getting on to the part that I was talking about earlier, and making these big clearings in the foliage just to make everything look nice, and have like an actual view of the mountain and not be totally blocked off by trees. So I'm happy with the way this turned out. I think that it was a good choice to not fill the whole thing with forest, and this is like one of the only areas in the whole island really that's just like a big open clearing, and there's not like a bunch of trees or you know, some civilization of some sort. This is really nothing. It's just like a nice big natural open space, and I gotta say, I think it turned out pretty well. And I like to do more of this stuff, these kinds of things, in the other side of the island when we have like less neighborhoods, less everything. It's a lot more rural over there. I want to have more natural and cool looking things like that. But we're about at the end of this portion of the episode, so let's go ahead and jump to the live portion and see how it turned out. Alright, so this is it. This is the final product of the first half of our island. I'm really happy with the way all of this turned out, especially this little area over here. As you guys may know, I've been really kind of putting off working on this area. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, so I'm really happy with how it turned out. But I gotta say, I think some of my favorite parts of this little project in particular were this little hill over here that sort of it goes up to the water tower. It overlooks the airport down here on this side. I think it'd be so cool just to hike up this little trail that kind of winds up to here and sit over here by the water tower, and even climb up the water tower and have a cool view of the airport, all the planes coming in and landing and taking off. It'd be really, really cool. And I also love the way that the rest of this little end of the island turned out. We got a little sort of, not really camping, but just a little beach area over here with some bonfires and fun stuff going on over here. And then of course we have the main event, this part over here, this center Opal Trailhead section. And I love the way that this turned out with the dirt paths and the dirt for the parking lot and all that stuff. That was a nice touch. Really, really happy with how the surface painter tool handled all that stuff. It turned out pretty nicely. These little light posts ended up being pretty cool. I think they were a nice happy medium between not being just like old wooden lights, but still looking like they were kind of just manufactured for use out of the city, you know, somewhere like over here. Nice little trailhead lighting around this way. And then we have our big sort of Chautauqua, Boulder, Colorado inspired mountains over here on this side, with the big rocks like formations over here, and our nice open green space around the trailhead over here. I think that turned out pretty nicely as well. We got the dense forest area over here, which again was a pretty cool little touch. I think this is like one of the only areas in, I think, the whole hiking trail section so far that's like really dense woods that you have to walk through to get to this neighborhood over here on this side. And we got this little road over here, this little country road, which I think also turned out pretty nicely. I'm a big fan of just the way this whole thing looks with our little American speed limit signs over here, and we got a little broken down truck on this side. We got the winding dirt road that's right next to these gates for our airport over here, which is kind of cool, I think, as well. And yeah, that's actually pretty much it for what we did this episode. I think that all combined together, it was a cool little project. I especially like this little, I forgot about this spot as well. We put this like by the side of the trains. We got this little log thing and some supplies, maybe some maintenance vehicles and stuff, a little maintenance shed over here on this side next to our camping and all that stuff. But I think all in all, this stuff really ties together the island. I think especially just like the hiking trails and the little trailhead over here and the hiking trails on this side. I think this stuff really ties together the whole city. So we'll be doing more of this stuff over up in the mountains over here and over on this side. Possibly doing a racetrack over here. This was another thing that kind of came up a few times that maybe would be a cool idea. Let me know down below if you think it's a cool idea. I was thinking like a rally track or something, maybe a little even like a speedway that's asphalt. I don't really know what we'll do yet, but I've been wanting to make a racetrack for a while, so that might be a possibility as well. But next episode is going to be focusing on this utility island over here. This needs to be cleaned up because, of course, this has been around since probably the first 2 episodes of the series, and I've been looking to change this around and make it look better for a long time now. So we'll be reworking this entire thing, making it look much better, and then that'll be pretty much it for this whole section, and then we can move on to more exciting things. So that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.